a quick note on the RSS feed that you are subscribed to right now. There's 3 shows on the same RSS feed. The first one is Gaming with Grief. That comes out every Sunday, and the video version of it hits YouTube Monday morning at 7 a.m. So you can go there if you want to watch the video version, or you can just listen to the audio version on Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, or Spotify. It hits those places Sunday afternoon usually. And again, the video version will hit Spotify like probably Monday evening, but 7 a.m. YouTube, if you want to watch the video version, go there. The second show is The Grief of Politics. I have a co-host, Avin Carroll. We talk about something every month. The audio version of that on the feed hits on the 19th in the afternoon, usually when it posts. The video version hits YouTube 7 a.m. the 20th of every month. So go there, leave comments, all that kind of stuff. Normal stuff you would do on a YouTube channel. The third one is a tabletop RPG show that I play with my friends. I'm the GM this time. That hits on the 1st and the 15th of every month. On the audio feed, it usually hits in the afternoon. So on the afternoon of the last day of the month and the afternoon of the 14th. The video, again, hits YouTube on the 1st and the 15th at 7 in the morning. So if you want to go there, you can watch every episode, subscribe, like, and all these shows, if you want to write to me, you can write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Or you can leave a comment below the YouTube video. Or if you want to go to gamingwithgrief.com, you can go to www.gamingwithgrief.com, leave a comment below the episode, and you can do the same thing for The Grief of Politics. Go there below the episode and leave a comment. It's thegriefofpolitics.com, and you can leave a comment on the episode or things like that. And you can also write to me anywhere at, again, gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. That's just a general email address for the RSS feed. So if there's a specific topic or episode you want to talk about, you can leave it there. So thank you so much for supporting the show in any way you do. I just wanted to make a quick note. So have a good day. And now we'll get on to the episode. Anyway, hello, my name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 40 of The Grief of Politics. I am joined by my co-host, Avin Carroll. Avin, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be back.
Joking around Rainier earlier. This is great. That all got cut out. But for people that don't know, that don't live in the Northwest, it is a somewhat popular beer. I'm more familiar with Heidelberg, which is the southern variety of Rainier. So
I think the equivalent for anyone who's listening elsewhere in the country is Rainier beer is the Northwest equivalent of
Bud, really,
PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon.
PBR, yeah.
It's a very similar beer, lager.
They're trying to be fancy. Anyway, this isn't the beer podcast. This episode 40. It's an election year, Avin. Last month, you and I talked about Biden in 2024. So this month, we're talking all about Trump in 2024. So I'm glad we kind of kicked this down the road a bit because we didn't know what we were going to talk about. We had phone calls. Well, I mean, we knew we were going to talk about Trump, but when were we going to talk about him? There's been a lot of stuff in the news about him, and we want to stay up to date as possible, so we're kind of recording this at the last available moment that we both have to do this.
So it's Saturday, April 13th. Podcast goes live on the 20th. So we won't be able to record it and get it live next weekend.
Which kind of blows. Funny story, though, when I sent you the articles... well, you know what? First off, after reading these articles, and obviously you and I have many phone calls back and forth about what we're going to talk about and what we feel about things, did any of these articles like illuminate your feelings or change your feelings about Trump? About, his lawyers found something that could totally change the case? Or were you like, yeah, this person is doomed to be litigated? And he's the presumptive conservative nominee, Republican nominee.
I mean, he is the presumptive Republican nominee for president.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, he is, because everyone else dropped out.
They did the brave thing.
No. These particular articles did not change my opinion on Trump in any way, shape, or form. They 100% just outline what I already know about him. And, as you are aware, I have no opinions at all on this.
Yeah,
100% sarcastic.
Usually when you and I call each other, there's just silence on the other end. That's right. It's just an hour of silence. So,
I mean, you do like to pontificate, Joe.
I'm gonna look that up later. But yeah, I think for me, especially with one of the issues that I say the article is about, the abortion issue. I've heard somebody say it before. I don't know who said it, but it really stuck in my brain. They said, this is the dog catching the car with abortion. For years, conservatives have talked about overturning Roe v. Wade. They did. Was it 2 years ago, I want to say? 2022? And, these ballot initiatives have gone to states. Most conservatives will say, well, now it's up to the states to decide. And it seems when it is on the ballot, like when people vote for it, that people want access to abortion in some way, shape, or form. Michigan is an example. I can't think of states. But, I've actually, to be a weird aside, I've actually seen my dog when I was young catch a car, and it wasn't pretty. And I'm just kind of seeing that politically now. It was terrible. My dog ran out into the street, got the car stopped, but he got just bumped by it, ran in the house, put his tail between the legs, and hit under the coffee table. And it really feels like a lot of conservatives nowadays caught the car, and now they're under the coffee table with their tail between their legs, not knowing what to do because Trump came out and gave a statement about, we'll leave it up to the states. It's like, well, we're doing that, and it seems like it's not going your way. He doesn't want to pass a national abortion ban. It seems like the party is like split.
I don't know that he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, which is probably
the poison pill.
Yeah.
For elections, right? And it's not hard. It is not going to be hard for this. So I'm going to backtrack a smidge and then come back to what I was getting at here. So last month we wanted to talk about the uphill challenges that we're facing Biden. This time we're looking at the uphill challenges that are facing Trump.
Both pretty steep hills, we got to say. They both got to go.
Both of them have some pretty steep hills, but at the end of the day, I'll give my closing thoughts right here at the beginning, so you guys don't have to skip past all of this and see that. Avin's closing thoughts, because that's what you're all here for. At the end of the day, the things that are uphill battles for these guys, their base is still going to vote for them because they're never going to vote for the other guy. The very small group in the middle, which is growing, of independents, is really who they're fighting.
I slightly disagree with that. I do think, hey, we got to defeat Trump. He's terrible. I think Biden's policies, there is like a wave in the left saying we're not going to vote for Biden. We either stay home or we're going to vote. But like you said, we talk about problems with Trump all the time. His base is his base, and he's not growing that base. So although Biden has a base and he had a shot to grow it with student loan forgiveness and all these other things, the infrastructure bills.
Votes.
Yeah, basically. Now, to sidetrack to Biden a little bit, apparently he's trying to go after people who voted for Nikki Haley that are moderate Republicans. So again, instead of trying to correct course and going, how can I change as a candidate and outreach to these, they're just looking at another thing and saying, oh, look, there's this other field over here with voters. And I think Trump kind of did the same thing in 2016 to be elected of what are the other voters, which, there's been a lot in the news about maybe they're not as the greatest of people, as he would say. There may be a little bit of the people that are okay with fringe beliefs. He mentioned comments about vaccines and got, scolded on Truth Social, saying I should get credit for warp speed. Now, no matter what problems I have with Trump, he signed the paperwork. He definitely deserves credit for that. But even his supporters are like, I don't, this is bad, basically, that you did the
vaccine bad.
And there is a talk of how the conservatives are going to embrace mail-in voting this time. Because, again, for a long time, mail-in voting has, like you said, been a poison pill. So are they going to embrace it this time and tell people to go to the polls and tell people to vote through the mail? They haven't really commented on that. I think they will closer to the election, but I want to see what they're... what's going to happen. What I found was interesting. It wasn't an article I sent you. It was something I found this morning, and I imagine it exists, but I can't believe I found it. This was written last year by Politico, and it's just called Tracking the Trump Criminal Cases. It is a hyperlinked worksheet, Avin, and it was written by the whole staff. It came out June 6th, 6/13/2023 at 1 a.m. They updated it this year, 329 at 2024.
So a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago. And this is how it starts. This is all I'm going to read. For the first 234 years of the nation's history, no American president or former president has ever been indicted. That changed in 2023. Over a 5-month span, former President Donald Trump was charged in 4 criminal cases. Together, the indictments accuse him of wide-ranging criminal conduct before, during, and after his presidency. This is Politico's up-to-minute guide to the 4 Trump criminal cases. And they have them in drop-down menus. They have the federal election interference case, the Georgia election interference case, the classified documents case, the hush money case. The one's in New York. That one's happening right now. I just read an article before we started that he may testify on Monday, which is his lawyer. Don't let him do it. Don't let him. I mean, he's gotten in trouble in other trials for basically turning it into a stump speech. And the judges had to say, stop doing that. You're not running for president. You're defending you're defending yourself. Don't incriminate yourself. Right.
Right.
So
no, but he doesn't know how to do it. He's got no filter. And you know what? That's what a lot of his base loves about him is he's got no filter, and he's going to come out swinging at the people that are swinging against him.
Right.
I don't think in this case it's going to be as successful as we've talked about it before. Right. I'm not circling back to what I was bringing up before because now I've forgotten it. But in previous podcasts we've talked about Trump wants to be out there making the scene. Like these cases are doing him good. They're helping him among Republicans. Even Republicans that aren't necessarily supportive of Donald J. Trump are becoming sympathetic because they at least feel like he's being attacked. And I think you and I have talked about as well that it's really, really, really easy for people to be like, yeah, these are political, and look at them and say they're politically motivated because most of these cases are brought against him in states that are
New York, D.C.
blue states.
Right.
But then on the flip side of that, you also have the documents case in Florida and the case in the documents case in Florida, which is a federal case, which is brought up by a Justice Department that is currently under the leadership of a Democratic
administration.
What is the word I'm looking for? Yes, there we go. Thank you. So it's really easy to be like, oh, these are political. It's a witch hunt. They're out to get me. And while you can make the case like each one of these went through a grand jury and the grand jury's approved the indictments, so the evidence is strong enough that the grand jury said yes, move forward.
Well, there's that lawyer.
I really feel like a lot of conservative commentators are just ignoring that fact. If, or more likely when, he gets convicted in any of these cases, it's going to be by a jury. Right. Unlike the fraud case in New York, that was a jury wasn't involved because of the type of case it was. It wasn't that someone missed a checkbox or something for a jury trial. It was not a jury trial, a type of case that would have been a jury trial. These will be in front of juries.
Yeah. Well, there is that lawyer joke about a jury can indict a ham sandwich or something like that, it was a group of people.
So the reality of it is it's very easy to do that. Yes, there is the lawyer joke. You can indict a ham sandwich, right? And that's all true. And grand juries aren't selected, I don't believe, the same way as an actual trial jury is selected, where both sides get to interview and, make their case for each various juror that's selected. Right. When it comes to the actual trials, and these jurors are selected by both the prosecution and the defense, and they get to screen the jurors.
Yep.
When one of these convictions comes through, because I can almost guarantee he's going to get convicted of something. I think
there's 91.
Just too strong.
There's 91 charges.
When one of these comes through, it's going to be really, 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 really hard to say that's a political witch hunt.
Yeah.
Because the jury convicted based off of the evidence. Now, you and I have talked before. I do think it's politically motivated. I think the left hates him. I think when he got out and he didn't play by the rules, the old guard of we don't go after ex-presidents because we just respect the office and leave it be. I think the old guard rules on that were broken when Trump didn't play by the rules.
Well,
And
hey, the thing with Biden with the impeachment turned out to be nothing, but I'm glad they went through the whole process. I'm glad they tried to find evidence. Their witness turned out to be a Russian agent. That was funny, but and even with Hunter Biden, like it seems like there's still some tax stuff that he did. I want him to be held accountable. I'm not sitting here going, oh, if it is politically motivated, but in my opinion, and this is like my big theory I've been thinking about for a long time, on a lot of these, I hate to say it, well, even left wing, but some conservative, like Ben Shapiro and all this stuff, they talk about, oh, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. And it's like, if you follow that to its natural conclusion, that's defeatism. What is the point of anything? Do I think the justice system is perfect? No, but I want it to improve, and it still functions,
But the reality of it is politically motivated digging into an opponent that brings up actual crimes is kind of how our system is meant to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't like you, and I think you're a criminal, and so I'm going to prove you're a criminal so that you can't be a part of the system anymore. And so it does kind of make you be held to a higher standard. Now, here's the reality. If we look back in the history of the United States of America, over the last...
Are we doing that now?
I don't know, 50, 60 years?
Yeah.
Actually, probably even longer than that. Like, almost every one of our presidents has been involved in controversy and criminal activity. And you know what? We look at them, but we kind of leave it be, right? Because you're the president. Well, and Trump has made this case, right? Like, you didn't go after Obama. You didn't go after Bush. Why are you coming after me? But they all played by the game.
Even Nixon, there was a big thing when the whole Watergate thing was going on about, who's doing this. And then, Nixon, for the good of the country, said, I'll resign. I've done.
He played by the played by the rules.
Even for him it was, and I think going after presidents. I mean, we find a lot of stuff out after people have been out of office, right? Like a lot of people start talking. There's book deals. A lot of people start going through paperwork. You start stuff gets declassified, and it's like, wait a minute, the picture, whoever your candidate was, the rosy picture you had of him, probably a few years after they leave office is totally going to change, because it's like, well, now this...
If you're honest, right? If you're willing to accept a counter viewpoint, right? Like, there are people out there who are just going to be closed-minded and be zealots. Yeah. Trump has his zealots. Biden has his zealots. I don't get it.
Well, even Trump's zealots.
Every president's going to have the people that truly, truly believe in their people. But the vast majority of Americans, I think, look at every president and just accept that, like, there's trade-offs. Yeah. It wasn't perfect, but... he did the best he could with what he had. Yeah, he made some bad decisions. I think they were done for the benefit of the country.
Right.
And in Trump's case, he lost. He didn't think he lost. He went out looking for evidence.
He still talks about that too. He still talks about that.
They didn't find any evidence, and instead of being like, you know what, I really didn't think I lost, but we can't find any evidence to prove it. I'm gonna walk away and let the country move forward. No, he fought even harder. He doubled down even more. Mm-hmm. He went out to his supporters and said, hey, let's protest and make a big, huge scene about it. Mm-hmm.
And we all saw what happened. There's video footage of what happened on the, somebody recorded it. I will say, too, it seems like that for Trump, obviously, like, yes, this is politically motivated to the nth degree. But I think just as time goes on and we see more of these trials, I think even his supporters are going to get tired of, it's like, I can't go through this again. Like, I can't do this.
I don't think his true dyed-in-the-wool supporters are going to. I think it's the people that are sympathetic. I think the people that have been brought in and been sympathetic towards it, as they start to see what actually happens in these trials, as they start to see that the evidence against him is actually strong, because where they're getting their news sources aren't actually covering the charges. They're dismissing them. They're apologizing for them, right? Like, they're going through apologetics, explaining them away.
And again,
once they actually begin to see, like, this is the evidence. Oh, dang. Wait, you're telling me that he actually admitted that he knew he couldn't make those documents unclassified?
Yeah.
That's going to be really, 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 really hard for him.
Or just getting people around his orbit telling their account of, hey, we went over this with him. You can't do this. And him doing,
they're disloyal. They're liars. I never hired them. They didn't work for me. Someone else hired that person.
But he told me he told me he had the best people. That's what he said.
Every that you know what? Let's just be honest, Joe. That case, that argument has fallen on its face every time it's been brought up with someone. Everyone ignores it.
He had the best people until they got fired. Until they got fired from his administration, they were really good.
Every president fires people, right? Like it just happens. You bring people in, they don't do a good job like you thought they were going to, right? Like,
but that's a lot, though. His were a lot. Like there was a lot, man. It was a lot.
I agree. And I think the evidence is extremely, extremely strong that the guy is just a giant, orange toupee balloon of hot air.
Yeah, it's and he's selling Bibles now for $60. That what I think is really weird too is like what you read these reports of the RNC literally out of money. Because they're funneling all their money for his legal fees, or most of it, a vast majority. Lots of it.
Way more than they should be.
And it's sucking away from like these down ballot races. They can't give money to any, people running in different districts and stuff because all they're doing is paying for his legal fees. It's like, there's been a lot of talk about.
More of the Republican Party would recognize that if they don't kiss the ring, he's against them and like six his attackers on him. But I also think that's what buys a lot of loyalty. Yeah. I think a lot of people figure out that like if not kissing the ring results in me being attacked, not physically or violently in most cases, but just attacked politically and being, challenged where I shouldn't be challenged, then kissing the ring like gets the endorsement and gets, full support. I'm going to kiss the ring. I want to be in power.
I wonder because was it Mike Johnson? Somebody went to go see him. They had to vote on a bill. I think it was Mike Johnson.
In the last couple of days.
And a lot of people, even on the right, are like, "Wait, you're going to Mar-a-Lago? Shouldn't we be having meetings and going over these votes? Why, like you said, kiss the ring? I got to go kiss the ring." Which is crazy for someone that is that religious to kind of kowtow to. I mean, Mike Johnson is openly Christian. For him to kowtow so much and go talk to Trump, like you said, kiss the ring. Isn't there a commandment about that? I thought there was a rule against holding people up above. Whatever. I'm not religious. I don't. I will say for him though, like you said, I've said it many times in our conversations. I would watch a 4-hour debate between someone on the left and the right for them to just go over the charges. Okay, you think this is politically motivated? We got 91 charges. This is going to be a 3-part, 4-hour podcast. We're going to go over this case and we'll go over these charges and we'll argue. We'll go back and forth. Then we'll go to the next case and we'll go over these charges. Like, it's
bringing us back on track a little bit because it's really easy for us to just run this down and talk about our views and our opinions and all of this and our lack of understanding of it, right? Like we don't have someone here who's making the case on the other end of it. So we have our viewpoints and our understanding and neither of us gets it, right? Like both of us look at this and we're like, how could you support this guy? And there's, I've talked to people and they're like, but look at all the good he did. And so there's a lot of people that really believe that he did a lot of good for the country and think he would continue to do a lot of good for the country. I just don't understand how you excuse all of the bad when there's better choices who would do the same kinds of things.
I think a while ago when we were talking about him, you shared an article with like things he actually like accomplishments, and I read them, and they were good. There was like vaping legislation, like there was some stuff, but to me it seemed like it was kind of on the margins. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't a big, except for warp speed and stuff like that. But it seemed like a lot of the accomplishments would be considered minor, And I think that, like you said, how can you excuse all this stuff for these big things that are going on? Like you can have.
What about all the damage? What about all of the lack of trust? What about, you say you love America and yet you're tearing down its traditions and its systems. Now, some of those systems probably should be challenged or torn down. But when you're undermining the core principle of the United States of America, representation, right? Yeah. Like that is the biggest component of what makes us who we are as a country is that all of us have the right to vote, to be represented in the system that runs our country so that we can change the system if we need to. Yeah. To attack that and tear it down, to erode the trust in that system intentionally with with explicit intent. I just don't understand how you could support the guy.
I mean, right now, like
you and I have talked about it. I don't think he's an existential threat to our democracy. He's talked about the different things he's going to do. There's all these documents about all these things he could do. But the reality of it is we have checks and balances in our system on purpose that would make it impossible for him to go in and tear the system all down and become a dictatorship in a single term.
I will say, I agree with you. I do think that after last time and the terribleness that happened, it does seem like we had guardrails. It seems like the next time, though, I mean, I hope he's not successful, but it seems like he's taking steps to remove some of those guardrails. So, like, all those people are in his orbit that were telling him, we can't do this. It's not legal. We found no fraud. Like, he's not putting those people back in his administration. He's putting people that'll be like, yes, sir. You know? And so that's the problem I see.
And so you take more of the guardrails out, but then also the things that he's trying to do become more explicit, and the system is able to respond more directly. Look at I think a really good example of this, if we want to look elsewhere in the world, is Netanyahu.
Oh yeah.
Right, him trying to circumvent the systems in Israel that don't allow him to be in power, trying to find ways to get into power. There was a recent case at their Supreme Court that basically was shot down that was going to eliminate the ability for him to basically be a dictator. I don't remember what it was. But
too, it seems like some of the things like Netanyahu wants to do, even the coalition that he's formed around, does it's a nice analog to Trump, because it's the idea that he basically, like, I think Trump tapped into a very specific thing, and like we've definitely see a rise in any kind of hate speech and stuff like that. It doesn't matter the group or whatever. I mean, and I think they're emboldened partially because Trump just says what he wants. So they're like, well, if he says what he wants and he's the president, then I can say what I want. I think Netanyahu did the same thing where, like, with Trump, those people voted for him, but it's like an uneasy alliance where now the conservatives are like, man, we have these people that don't like us in our own Senate and Congress. This sucks. We're not going to get anything done. And I think with Netanyahu, he's formed a government of people that's like, you have to do X, Y, or Z or we're out. You know, like they're going to, there's that invasion plan of Rafah. We're saying, hey, don't do it. Netanyahu's like, I'm going to do it. And people in his cabinet are like, if you don't do it, I'm out, meaning your whole coalition goes away. You know, and so it's crazy.
He's kind of being held hostage now to account, right? And Trump to some degree was, but not the same way.
Right.
The fact that is how it operates, though, I think is very important to recognize that, like, no matter what, Trump can take guardrails away, but there are enough systems and checks in our and balances in our system. There are processes in our system that make it very hard for him to become this true dictator that people expect that he could be. Even executive orders are temporary and can easily be taken apart.
Yeah, I mean, that happened when Biden took office. Everybody complained. I'm like, Trump did the same thing, like the day one.
The guardrails can be taken down and eroded, but at the end of the day, as long as they go back in, you know, we're okay. It would take multiple terms of explicit intention for the whole system to fall apart.
Right.
Could it happen? Yes. Is it possible to happen? Yes, because, right, like if you look all over the world, populist movements and ideas, strongman politicians are winning. We're starting to see a little bit of erosion of that in other countries, right? Specifically, I'm thinking of Turkey, which their shocking election that just happened where...
I think I heard about that, yeah.
Erdogan? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, exactly.
Erdogan, yeah. Where he was voted out, which is just shocking, right? He's been in power for like 25 years.
Yeah.
And he has worked very hard in that 25 years in a country that is far less established in its democratic processes and systems. And I say that because Turkey's a much older country with a much longer history than we have.
Yeah.
And yet even he was not able to maintain and stay in power. So, you know, I don't think that Trump is this big, huge, giant threat. If he wins again, you know, I'm not going to be happy about it because I think he's going to do a lot of harm. Like any president, I think he will do good things. I think Biden has done good things. I think Biden has made some really big mistakes.
And Trump's made some really big mistakes as well.
Right. Trump made many big mistakes. Biden's made many big mistakes, right? Like,
yeah,
we've had two of the worst presidents in the history of our country in a row, in my own personal opinion. Both of them.
They're the oldest too, right? Aren't they they're the oldest? Yeah, I think so.
Both of them kind of lame duck, right? Like Trump couldn't get through so much of what he said he was going to do. Biden wasn't able to get through so much of what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean the conservative, the House and the Senate, I think they have the lowest percentage of like any kind of passage of legislation.
Yeah, I mean, Republican Party itself is just in shambles. They can't agree on anything.
Yeah,
it's shameful. So uphill battles for Trump. We've beaten the dead horse so much on his criminal cases, his indictments, right? Like those are going to be a huge uphill battle for him.
Well, the one thing I did want to bring up is one of the actual articles is this Newsweek article about the bond that took place in New York over his,
This is my point. Like, this is what I was trying to pivot to these. So perfect. Good time.
His. Well, we've been doing it for a while. It basically, like, I didn't hear about all this until like Thursday or Friday. That, it was originally like what $450 million the bond, or there was different figures. It was about $450 million. Then a court ruled, hey, that's absorbent. Bring it down to like 175. But even that the 175 bond basically didn't go through because I've heard a lot of different things, but they couldn't verify the financial backing of it, and so it didn't go through. Basically, they didn't fill out.
It's an out-of-state company that hasn't been approved in New York, so they've got to prove quite a bit of stuff before it can be be Right. I'm not seeing any news newer than the article you sent me. The one you sent me was dated for April 9th.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I only heard about this Thursday or Friday, or I think Wednesday, whatever. I heard about it mid last week, so.
Yeah, that was a Newsweek article dated April 9th, titled "Donald Trump Could Be in a World of Hurt Over Bond Issue." Yeah. And a little background on that, if you're listening to this and you're not familiar, which I would doubt given what we're talking about. In fact, you're listening to this, you're probably following it too. But a little background.
Yeah, the three people.
In Donald Trump's fraud trial, he was originally indicted on it and was fined $454 million. Yep. He appealed that, saying that it was way too much and disproportionate. Yep. The appeals court agreed. They lowered it down to 175. Mm-hmm. It was really hard for him to go find a bond. He finally found a bond company.
Well, they couldn't. They went to like 30 different people to find that original bond. And they were like, no, $500 million. Are you kidding me?
Right. And so he finally found a company that was willing to put up the bond.
Yep.
And that company needs to be able to prove that they actually have the cash on hand to cover it if they need to.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people have that amount of money.
Process.
Yeah, not a lot of people have that amount of money just laying around, So
right. But he now has, so today is the 13th. He has until Monday the 15th for that to get approved, to come up with the money, or the state is going to start seizing assets.
Do you think they'll take the tower?
They can seize property. The article that you sent, this particular article, talks about them seizing operating cash, which would be actually probably more harmful to Trump's companies than taking the business. Because the operating cash is immediately liquid and super hard for them, or super easy for them to get.
Yeah.
If they seize a building, they've got to sell it to somebody, and that takes time. But seizing his operating cash means that he can't pay bills, he can't pay payroll, he can't do other stuff. There's
been talk of him not really paying payroll anyway. There's been many things over the years how he stiffs contracts.
Over the years, right? But like by and large, you can't not pay your people. People quit or sue, and like that's when you lose. You never win not paying people.
Yeah,
like
I will
up the cash.
I mean, like you said, they got to sell those properties if she decides to take properties. Right. I'll say an image that would totally, I think, affect him politically would be if for some reason, I mean, this is still early, she just said, we're seizing Trump Tower for whatever reason. We've done this. You're still short. We're going to seize your number one asset. We're going to take Trump Tower. And, I mean, I don't
think they can do that. My understanding is they can't seize any assets that are above and beyond the asset necessary. So if they took his cash, we'll say he had $100 million in cash, we'll say, in his operating account, so they take that, and then I think the next thing they could do would be something worth 75 million.
Oh, because
I don't think they could go out and take something that's worth 300 million.
I was just gonna say, I think that's politically would be a terrible image of them taking his, the letters off the building.
Taking the Trump logo off of the tower, right?
Yeah.
Which would be a big, huge political boon. It would be a giant grandstanding thing. It'd be something that they'd be able to point at and say this is grandstanding. Yeah. It would garner him more support.
Oh, you think so? Oh.
I personally think it would. I don't think that would hurt him politically at all. I think that allows him to go out and be like, they hate me so much. Look what they're doing. They're taking this sign down as a grandstanding just so they can say they had this big, huge victory, but I'm appealing it and I'm going to win. They're going to have to put that back up. Blah, 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 blah. Right? Like, it's... The hot air flows like the spice.
I'll say I think it's pretty interesting. There has been a lot of talk on the right about how that. The one thing I'll say that really bothers me about the fraud trial is the way it is on the right, where they say it was a victimless crime. So right. Like, why is he? And you're like, but fraud exists for a reason. Like, there's a reason why we have a law against fraud, and many people on the left have pointed out, if ordinary Joes like myself tried to do anything near what he tried to do, we'd already be in jail. Our assets would have already been seized. We already would have been.
Right.
I mean,
but the reality of it is extremely wealthy people have been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And this is why Kevin O'Leary was like, this is a nothing burger. Like, why are they doing this? This isn't a big deal. People do this all the time. The banks didn't get hurt. The insurance companies didn't get hurt, right?
Right.
Blah, 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 blah. Well, first off, if the banks or the insurance companies actually knew, they would go after him themselves.
Right.
Probably. Maybe not, though. There's a lot of greed at that level. When you're making that much money, they're just looking at the cash coming in. Because Trump pays his bills. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you and I talked a bit. I think some of it is, like you said, Kevin O'Leary was like, hey, we all do this, right? And I think they do. And that's fine. But I think in Trump's case, one, like you and I always talk about, the moment you become president, people are going to look at you more. The magnifying glass is going to swing over to you. And two...
Before he was elected, we brought this up. Like, why is he doing this? It's just he's inviting the microscope.
Yeah. And two, I think what happened was, I told you on the phone in one of our many conversations, I'm like, I think he took too many bites of the apple. Like, I think on those high level deals, I think the banks and all that go, well, there's a little bit of grift here, but like, we're used to dealing with these highfalutin deals, as it were. Here's kind of like the level of grift we're used to. And I think Trump just said, I'm going to do more. And then finally, the state and everything just looked and said, no, sir,
there's more.
Yeah, like, no, man, you've done too much. You've crossed the Rubicon, as it were. And then that really sunk him, I think. I think
he didn't play the game within the rules.
Yeah.
The agreed upon.
Yeah, even
not just the legal rules, but like the agreed upon.
The handshake.
Etiquette.
The gentleman's handshake. He didn't shake the hand and just started doing stuff. And they're like, whoa, man. Listen. I mean, somebody should have just like brought him in a room and said, listen, man, we know you're going to, like the bank rep would have been like a Ryan Gosling in The Big Short would have been like, listen, let's work together. I know you're going to try to rip us off. We're going to give you your loan. Just don't be brazen about it. And just do a little bit of grift. Don't grift too much. And he was like, I'm going to grift. And like, okay, man.
That's not even the situation, though, right? Like, he got away with this for decades. This kind of behavior is something that he has done for decades because it's just accepted practice, right? Like, not everyone does it. Only the greediest of the greedy do it. But they all get away with it because they understand the banks are greedy. The insurance companies are greedy. They all want it. The more honest people don't do it, and good for them.
Yeah.
But as we've talked about, it's not victimless, right? It keeps rates higher for other people because they're giving these favorable deals elsewhere.
Right.
You and I can't get it. It creates an unfair system. And like, I'm the pro-capitalist person in this room, and I still look at it and I'm like, dude, you're not playing the game.
Yeah, you're not. Right? Yeah, again, you didn't even shake the gentleman's handshake agreement. You didn't do.
I'm a libertarian. I'm a libertarian, man. Like, we need less regulation in our country, but less regulation only works when human nature is kept in check.
Yeah.
So, like, I am all for this. I'm all for this because this shows everyone else playing this game or playing the game that way. Hey, we will come after you.
Yeah.
Reality of it is most of them are going to get away with it because they're not presidents and they're invisible, and so they're not getting seen. It's just going to keep happening. And then this is my favorite part of all of this with that particular argument is then everyone goes after Jon Stewart because Jon Stewart was attacking him. It's not victimless.
Oh,
blah, blah,
don't
blah, blah.
even.
Oh,
don't
Jon
even.
Stewart bought this home for
Go ahead.
1.3 million. Blah
Go
blah
ahead.
blah. Sold it for 17 or 18 million. And so like I hear it and I'm like, oh man, John. And then I actually look and read the article. I'm like, he didn't inflate the value. He sold it to someone who agreed at the price.
Well, welcome to New York real estate, because he lived in that place for what, a decade or whatever. So then it's
someone made him an offer on a home, and he accepted the offer. That's not inflating the value. They did. That's how real estate works.
Yeah,
like,
especially in New York, and it was
accepted the offer.
Wasn't it a penthouse too, like in New York? So it's like he had the money, he was making good money, so he's like, of course, because I think he lives out. Because he's from New Jersey.
Sold it for like 18 million. I think he bought it for like 1.3, sold it for 18. It was like almost a 900% increase in value, which, you know, most of our homes are not going to go up that much over a decade.
Right.
But when it's where it is, there's that much demand, and the people buying it have that much money. That's what happens. He did not inflate the value. I don't even think, if I remember correctly, he didn't even list it at that price point.
No, he listed
it way up.
I think he listed it like maybe a mil or, you know, whatever. Like, say it went for one, he bought it for one. I think he listed it for 3. So, like, with housing prices, he's like, this is fair. You know, like, this is a fair whatever.
Right, like, they were, literally, that attack was going out with the explicit intention of don't read the articles.
Yeah. Don't read.
We want the headline. We want the sound bite. We want that small bit of attention so that people can undermine the belief system in this and prove out the hypocrisy that doesn't exist. There is hypocrisy, but in this case, there is none.
Yeah.
Right. So the bond thing is going to be a giant deal for Trump. I mean, it's going to cost him a ton of money if he doesn't get it approved by Monday. I think he's banking on getting it approved by Monday.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't get it approved, what's he going to do? He's going to spin it. This is a witch hunt. They're out to get me. This is just a giant attack. This is what they've always wanted. They're jealous of me. They hate me. Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, I would...
There won't be a word that comes out of his mouth that isn't something he's already said that isn't predictable.
Right. Well, I was just thinking of something, like we've talked on the phone, you know, because a lot of people have said, like, why does this stuff take so long? Like you said, this fraud was going on for years. And it's come up as well in the documents case of, like, why did it take him so long to indict him and all this stuff?
Right.
And with the documents case, the one thing that I haven't seen brought up, which I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know if this is true, but I do know they're sensitive documents. So common sense says somebody had to look at them and what they could. They maybe had to request clearance and say, what can I look at to decide if this goes beyond the pale? And then
that's not secret. That was all over the news about them having to get a clearance and who could actually look at them and having to get the approval for even the judge to look at them because of what they were. Yeah,
she's in trouble because she wants a jury to look at them now. And the prosecutor's like, are you kidding me? Anyway.
Well, and this week, on that particular note, you are aware that some of the evidence came out without redaction this week.
Oh, no.
So the names of FBI agents that were interviewing Natua and the other guy were made public.
Oh no! Was that under her request? Did she say these have to be
under her direction?
She said these have to be unsealed or made public.
These ones are not going to be redacted. So those FBI agents' names are now in public sphere.
So she's probably out, right? I would imagine after something like that. I mean, because I heard he was like waiting. There had to be something that she would do that he's like, here's the red line that you've crossed. I wonder if this is the red line.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see if she gets bench slapped or if they come after her and pull her off the case. Pulling her off the case actually would slow things down more, so it would be beneficial to Trump.
It would be. I'm at the point now where, like, listen, I'm not excited about the election. We've talked about this. I don't want anything rushed. There's been so many times in Trump's career where he's Teflon Don. Let's see how he wiggles out of this. He wiggles out of something. We all get frustrated. Just let it play out. Let it take as long as it needs to take. You know, I don't know. Part of me is just like, because even if he becomes president, in my opinion, those court cases wouldn't go away. They'd literally just be put on pause. So I'd be like, well, they're waiting for you to get out of office. You can't run again. So the moment you're out of office, this is all going to start back up again, you know? And so, you know,
I mean, he can order his Justice Department to squash him. Whether or not they do is a different story.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that would be a sense of guardrails of people that are in there that actually care and like, hey man, I'm resigning. You know, you can't, whatever. The other thing I was gonna say with this, with the fraud, like you said, was going on for years. You know, maybe she decided to prosecute now because it was a pattern she could easily identify in the paperwork. You know, like her office is working on this for years, and they're like, well, this happened, and this was a shell company. We see a pattern, but we got to trace the money, and the money goes here, and so maybe it just took this long for them to go, okay,
No,
now
they
I'm
haven't
ready.
been watching him. They haven't been watching him until after this. Look, it, if he hadn't resisted handing over power the way he did, if he just accepted that he'd lost, if he'd been like, this is a scam, the election was stolen, we're going to get to the bottom of this, and he freaked out afterwards just like he had, but then all the evidence came back and he was like, you know what, we tried, we brought up the cases, the evidence isn't strong enough, you know, you guys fought hard for us and we're proud of it, but at the end of the day we lost and I'm going to step away for the good of the country and we'll come back in 2024, you know, fight the good fight for our country, and we'll see you in 4 years, right? If he'd done that, I think they would have left him be.
Yeah,
I personally
that's
do.
interesting.
I think he pissed them off so much that they were like, you know what? To hell with this guy.
Go
We
away.
are going to find everything. Dig
Yeah.
through his stuff with a fine tooth comb, find something that is indictable, that's strong enough that he can't get out of it. And so they did, and that takes time, right? You got to go through his records. You got to look at the evidence. You've got to evaluate all of it, right? January 6th, both of the January 6th cases, um, Georgia and great.
I don't know why. I to this day I don't know why that happens. I don't. I
It's a
don't
setting
know.
an apple.
I was.
Both of those cases, right? Like, wouldn't exist if he had just been like, you know what, the evidence wasn't there. So there's two less cases.
Yeah.
All of that wouldn't have gone through. You'd have maybe you wouldn't have the fraud trial, in my opinion, because they wouldn't have had as much reason.
Yeah, you're doing something.
I need to stop sticking my thumb up.
I don't.
They wouldn't have had as much reason to actually keep
Oh, it's
digging and
exactly.
go looking. He has no strategic viewpoint. None. It is all about
It's
ego.
grievance.
It is
It's
100%
yeah.
ego.
It's narcissism and grievance, really. You know, of like
Right, and what do narcissists do when you attack them and call them out on their narcissism? They lash out.
I mean, I haven't.
They
been to
get
much therapy, but
angry and violent
Yeah.
and attack because they have to protect that weak, shallow personality buried behind the shell.
yeah, to me, it's one of those things where you just. I don't know, man. I just, it's one of those things. And I mean, speaking of abortion, you know, his comments on abortion, he gave that big speech about, you know, again, states' rights and all that. And I think that is going to hurt everybody because it seems like nobody in the conservative party is on a consensus. You know,
Right.
You and I talked about abortion. I think whatever we feel about abortion, Roe v. Wade was kind of literally a compromise of, okay, we don't, none of us like this, or some of us really do like this, but this is the best we could do, you know? And I think by removing
At the
that,
time.
yeah, it's like by removing that, it's like, oh crap, you know?
I mean, Roe v. Wade happened, I feel like, if I remember correctly, and I need to probably reread my history on it. If I remember correctly, it was sort of the accepted compromise, but no one was really happy about it at that point in time either.
Yeah. Well, the
And-
Supreme Court argued about it too, and what's his bucket? Scalise obviously dissented. He was a conservative justice, and he said, "I don't like what they used as a remedy." I think one of the like a 14th Amendment. He said, "I don't like it." But of course, the Supreme Court, he was over like he was one of the dissenting, and then you know the 4-1 or whatever, you know. So I just think that it's going to be more and more of a problem for there's one ballot initiative. I need to look up where it is, but usually, you know, it's a 51-49 split. There's one state where it's coming up where it needs to be, I think, a 55 or 60% majority to pass. And so I'm really waiting to see if that, if that passes, to see, because that's rough, you know, when you got to get 60% of something. So
Right. And it's more difficult. And you know, you sent me the article talking about Trump's statements on abortion, and I think that's going to be a little bit less of an uphill battle for him. It is resistance. It might erode at some of his evangelical core, and maybe you get the same thing from them that you're getting from Biden on Israel, where you're going to have people that are, you know what, I can't support him. I'm going to stay home. This is too important of an issue.
Yeah.
My own personal opinion, though, is that's very unlikely because I personally believe that that voter that really, really cares about abortion is far more concerned about a more liberal president coming in and, getting a judge to replace or supporting or pushing agendas that are going to be eroding or putting in more protections of abortion rights.
Yeah, I mean, one good point I've heard on the left, which is if you are staunchly anti-abortion, even states' rights is not good for you, right? Like you're not going to agree with that. Like if you are anti-abortion, if you're able to have an abortion in California, I would imagine that it doesn't matter to you that your state doesn't allow abortions. You're going to be like, well, it needs to be outlawed or banned everywhere, And so by him saying
because
like
someone can still go somewhere else and still get it done.
Right. So then and I thought that was an interesting theory that I never thought about, because it's like, yeah, because like that's not the compromise you want, So it's, I don't know. I saw it physically as a kid. My dog did get the car and went under the table and and now I'm seeing it with conservatives where they're like, what do we do? Are we going to sign a national ban? Mike Pence slammed Trump's comments, basically said this doesn't stick with our values.
Right.
Is Lindsey Graham? He was out there still pounding the pavement for his national ban. It's just a big mess. So yeah, it's
and you know what? In this case, Trump is actually either his advisors or he himself is actually making a wise move. Right? He needs to back off a little bit because it is a firebrand of a topic of a position, and right now he's recognizing like that's doing a lot of harm. The humor of it to me is that he's out there. No. States need to make the decision on their own. No. Like we don't want to do a national ban. This is
right.
Like we've done the right thing. It's the states' rights. But then flip side and turn around and like I think it was the day after he made the comment about it's the states' decision. He goes into the next event and is like, I overturned Roe v. Wade. It's because of me.
Yeah.
So like it is not going to help him. It is going to be used against him. It's going to provide fodder for him. And most Americans, and I think the statistic is huge. I think it's like 70% of Americans believe in some protection of abortion.
Yeah.
Rights.
Well, Biden, I don't know if you
higher than the 6-week marker.
Yeah, it's like 15.
A lot of states are doing.
I know Biden just released an ad. It was just a couple being interviewed. Because her state banned abortion right after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Every state had, what do they call them, like placeholder laws that once that got overturned, it went into effect. I don't know what state she was in, but I saw the ad. And it basically, she said, she had a miscarriage and she went into sepsis twice and almost died. They had to revive her twice. And now she may not be able to have a kid. And it's because there was no exception in her state for any kind of medical whatever. And Biden's just playing that ad. And it's like, yeah, like that is... Because we all heard the stories coming out when Roe v. Wade got overturned. Unfortunately, like the incest, the rape, all the stories of like people having to try to go to different states to get it done. And it's like, well, it's shutting down here. Even in Alabama, they just passed that law where it's based on an 1864 law that's anti-abortion, and I guess it was passed before Arizona was a state, which I don't know how that works. But I think they still had a governing body, but they weren't like the territory wasn't settled or something yet. And they basically sided with an 1864 law that said abortion is illegal, and the age of consent in that law was 10 years old for women. Because back in the day, obviously we married everybody. If the girl was 15, she was like over the hill back then. Remember, like not
I don't think it was that extreme. Yeah.
It was pretty young. I think if you were like 20,
but I mean, if the age of consent is 10, like
15, you're like So that's what they're basing their law on. And Carrie Lake, who's been in the news a lot. She supports Trump. She's also sucked the Arizona GOP dry trying to pay for her legal bills to overturn the election. She actually came out against it because when it got passed, she was like, oh, this is not good for me electorally. We believe in a women's choice. And so people are playing her old comments back to her. Hey, didn't you used to say that, abortion is wrong and you believe in life? And now that this looks bad politically, you're like, oh, it's all fine. And people should be able to choose. And it's like, here we go, man. This is, oh, God.
Here we go.
Let's see how it turns out.
It's not surprising.
So,
It's
as we
disappointing.
as we wrap up, Avin, what are your like big? I mean, obviously, it's the indictments. Like, I mean, that is obviously a big thing. Is there anything else? I mean, I know we talked a bunch. Is there anything that you were like thinking of, or anything that like hit your brain while we were talking? Is there any other obstacles to Trump besides like the indictments and the? There's so much. The indictments, the stance on abortion, maybe the bond. I don't know. Is there anything that? Uh,
You know, I honestly think the biggest thing in Trump's way is easily all of the indictments. His attention is divided. He's focusing on other things. His finances are committed elsewhere. Um,
just just
the ability for him to be a victim and a victim of political attack and garner the sympathy of Republicans is the only thing he has working in his favor.
yeah.
And so if he gets indicted and people actually see the, or not indicted, if he gets convicted and people actually see the evidence in those convictions, that sympathy erodes
I
a
think
lot.
too, you know, it's been pointed out on the left many times, but I do find it very funny. You know, you're not supposed to be a victim. It's a meritocracy. You're supposed to win through talent. Trump's whole thing right now is victimhood, and everybody's just gobbling it up. You know, on the right, they're like, "Oh, look, they're going after him," and you're
But look,
like,
I've discussed it multiple times. I don't know how many times, but lots probably on here. Like among conservatives, there is a very, very strong feeling and sense of disrespect. Like we're not heard, we're not listened to. Like just for being conservative, we're automatically labeled as racists and bigots. Even though I don't know a single person who is conservative that I would ever even remotely consider to be racist. Um, like
"Well, I mean, in your
I get
life,
it. There is
you're
that
saying like,
sense
yeah, you're
of
saying in your life. I'm saying like, just generally, there's elected officials that have said things. You're like, Ugh, that's not
right,
yeah,
right. But inherently, if you say you're conservative, you hate all gays, think they need to die, you're automatically a racist. Like everything awful that's ever happened by any conservative ever, like just saying you're conservative, you are automatically lumped in with all of that, right? Like the idea of bucket of deplorables. When Hillary Clinton said that, like anyone who had any conservative leanings instantaneously was like, she finally said the quiet part out loud, because that's how they feel. And so when Trump's out there saying they're attacking me because of my beliefs, right? Everyone else associates with that. They relate to that. And so instantaneously they see themselves in him. Once he is exposed for being a liar, for manipulating people, a lot of the independent or more moderate conservatives are going to be like, "Oh no, I'm not like him."
yeah,
And they'll distance back a little bit. They'll still relate to that political witch hunt sense or feeling like they're looked down upon,
right,
disrespected.
right,
But they're definitely going to back off of associating like he's me.
yeah,
But for as long as he can hold on to that, like they're out to get me because I'm Republican, because I'm conservative. Anyone who has ever felt that attack at least has some level of, oh, I get it. And he's right, right? Like that's what's happening. That's what they're doing. And legitimately, if the Democratic Party could find a way to bridge that gap, to treat conservatives as equals, and to treat conservatives like, hey, we respect your views. We disagree with them, but like those are your views. No, you're not a racist. No, you're not instantaneously an LGBTQ bigot, right? Like, oh no, like your viewpoints are honest. Let's have an honest discussion. Like the
yeah.
moment they figure out how to bridge that gap,
Well, I think for that to happen, like we talked about earlier, the extreme on the other side is you are seeing conservatives mostly get up on these house floors and talk about how, you know, LGBTQ rights, you know, what, you know, they're going after trans people. They're doing so. It's like, well, listen, we'll sit down and have a conversation with you if you don't want, you know, people to not exist. I mean, obviously, like the Daily Wire, they do all these anti-trans things. Matt Walsh is all about that. What is a woman? And it's like, okay, well, if you want to sit down and have a conversation about your beliefs, like you can't just say that I don't exist or shouldn't exist or whatever. Like that's, you know, it,
if every single conservative is like Joe, you literally just did the same thing I'm talking about. If every single conservative is tied to that,
Well, what I'm saying is, it's not every
that
conservative, but it's people that are in charge that can pull
right,
the
but you're
levers.
saying that in order to have a discussion, anyone who has ever said that has to be automatically like you voted for him, and so obviously you believe in it. Well, I didn't vote for him. He's 50 states away.
Well, no, what I'm
Right? I didn't vote for DeSantis. I don't agree with his stuff.
well, what I think now is like we've talked about a lot. Like there's so much division that it's there isn't like, hey, can we just take a breath and sit down and talk about this? You know, like
Right.
it's not like you don't need to get up on the House floor and talk about how trans people don't need to exist. Like that, I don't even know what you're doing. You know, like don't do that
Right.
right now. You know, and like I won't
But
call
on
you
the
a
same
racist.
note, like if one conservative stands up and does that, it doesn't mean that all of the other conservatives should be lumped in and treated that same way. And that's what's happening. That's where conservatives feel. They feel like because this guy did it and he's Republican, I am automatically associated with this one person and all of us are the deplorables. And on the left, they probably feel the same way. Like AOC stood up and said something really dumb, like RICO isn't a law. I don't know if you're aware of that. She said that recently.
Yeah,
Or
it's
a
like
crime.
it's
RICO
like
isn't a crime.
it's like wait, what state? Because it is in
Right.
several states.
So, like, if I feel like a lot of liberals probably feel like, oh God, don't associate me with AOC again, right? Or Bernie Sanders, right? Like, no, I'm not. I don't believe in socialism. I just believe that people should be protected, right? But conservatives have one national media source
They get a lot.
versus
No, they get a lot now.
well, there's more, but none of them are as big as Fox or as public as Fox.
No, but I think it pulls from the middle more than because I don't think what I see with
But
conservative.
you have CNBC, MSNBC, CNN.
Yeah, but a lot of people are on the left aren't getting their news from that. You know, there is a division in news now.
Well,
and
I mean, the major news networks are losing viewership across the board. But my point is that like there's a lot of media on one side that's basically like these guys are evil and dumb. They sleep with their cousins. And that's how every conservative feels like
Well,
they're viewed.
I definitely-
And that's why Trump can pull this. And until the Democrats figure out, like, we just need to bridge that gap. We need to find the 80% of conservatives that don't sleep with their cousins.
Well, again, we talk about it on the show.
That's a joke, by the
No,
way. That's,
yeah, I
that's
know.
not true.
Yeah,
But-
don't. Hey, write a comment because I'd like to see one in the thing. No, how bad we are. I think, yeah. I mean, we could digress and digress, but I think the thing is, it's like, whenever you come to a bargaining table, you want it to be in good faith, and I think on both sides there is not that feeling. Like this isn't in good faith. You're doing it for clicks, views, clout, whatever. You're doing it for your constituent. I mean, and that's what
I think that podcast I sent you this week, I think that's actually one of the things that they talk about is like we're in a political system right now that's all about, headlines and sound bites.
Yeah.
That's how our politics is fought. Like
Yeah.
there aren't in-depth, meaningful, deep conversations in the public eye.
Well, we're doing it. All right. We got 20 subscribers. We're good. We got like 36 views.
Spread the word, 20.
Yeah. Tell your friends. Is there anything you want to plug before we leave? I know. Are you gonna start doing videos again for your your guide?
It is my intention.
Agent guide?
I haven't done them yet, but for your agent guide, I do intend on doing that. Your agent guide is my YouTube channel and my real estate business. The primary focus of that is, of course, connecting people with trustworthy professional real estate agents in their area. Not just, the random person you talk to, but someone who has a proven track record.
Yeah, it's important.
That's also a good fit for you. I know many agents here in the Pacific Northwest and can source agents outside in other states. I deeply believe that people should have good, talented, professional representation, and I hear too many stories of people working with agents that shouldn't be in the industry.
Or, it's like a doctor, anything you're going to have a long-term thing with. You want to have somebody you're comfortable with and,
Right, people working with someone they don't have a good relationship with, so they don't trust them, but they go through it anyway, don't have experience.
Yeah. So, check that out. I'll look for your videos. I've seen the other ones. I, of course, have Gaming with Grief, where I talk about video games, stuff like that. Avin's going to be on. Probably, we're recording it after this, to do an episode that'll come out in the past. Ooh, time. again, I'm getting more subscribers, but I'd like to get more. Subscribe to the RSS feed, and you can write to us at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Let us know what episode you have, or commenting on, and which one of us is stupid. It'll probably be me. Let's be honest. I'm the liberal hippie. But yeah, I think that's it. Avin, as always, it's been fun, and I will probably see you in a couple minutes so we could do the other podcast. So we will talk to everybody next month.